All right, I think we're good to go, Chair.
Okay, first order of business of the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission on Wednesday, November 4th, 2020 is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of September 9th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, roll call, please.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Landry,
Yes.
Commissioner Bilodeau,
Yes.
Commissioner Sear,
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Gruby,
Yes.
Commissioner French.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item of business is the quarterly financial update from Heather.
Hello. First of all, I need to apologize. I didn't change the heading on the document that was included in the package. That should have been as of October 31st, not August. So all the information is as of October, but the heading is wrong. You will note that as of the end of October, the operating account has experienced a deficit of $63,462.81. Although that may look alarming, if you look over to the column to the immediate left, you will see the commission with the transfers that were approved last meeting had approved use of fund balance. So the plan use of fund balance is $106,865. So we are still ahead of the plan use of fund balance, as you will note there. There are a couple line items that are still slightly trailing above budget. Those include the forestry. We noted at the last meeting and at meetings prior to this that one of the forestry bills that were supposed to be part of last year ended up getting in this year's based upon the submission of the invoice. The other is the operating supplies. We've had to do a number of purchases for the boat. In the past, this line item has had a surplus, so I'm comfortable not only with other surpluses within the budget that we will be able to absorb that deficit. The other item that we will not make up is the interest in the revenue after COVID hit in March. As most of you probably are well aware of, the interest rates have plummeted. So even though we only budgeted $750, and we are not going to come close to that by year end. From the sinking fund standpoint, we still have one submission of the Auburn Water for the last month, and that is trailing primarily because the commissioners do not budget for depreciation since there's no cash outlay. And that expense totals $65,354.31. Question?
No questions. Could I have a motion to accept?
I'd make that motion.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor, roll call.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Landry,
Yes.
Commissioner Bilodeau,
Yes.
Commissioner Sear,
Yes.
Chair Gruby,
Yes.
Commissioner French.
Yes.
Passed 6-0.
Okay. Heather, if you want to talk about the 2020 2021 budget.
Certainly. So that was included in your packet, and we have posted that on the website for a number of months now. I believe Kevin's gonna share the screen, so we'll see which document he picks up first, and then we'll talk about it.
Which one do you want, Heather?
Let's go with the summary.
Is that the right sheet?
There we go. Yep. So Kevin, can you make it full size by any chance?
Yep.
Or is that as big as yours goes?
I make it bigger.
Okay. So especially for some of the new commissioners, this shows 3 years worth of the commission's fiscal year, which is a calendar year, actual as well as the approved budget for the current year and what we anticipate concluding 2020 with. And then in your second to last column on the right, you will see the 2021, thank you, Kevin, budget. This is the first year in a while that we have had a number of budget transfers. So we have included the revised budget. For comparative purposes, the percentage change is based upon the revised budget. So you will see down through there have been adjustments to equalize both the work that the Auburn Water District as well as the Lewiston Water Division does, and that's been proposed for 2021 at $6,000 a piece. Executive has been reduced a little bit based upon actual cost incurred. Source protection is probably the biggest line item that has changed from the original approved budget. You will see that as an increased by $20,000, but is a 45% decrease from the revised budget because of the number of transfers that went through. Forestry has stayed about the same. It has jumped a little bit. Outside services, that's for the porta potties. That has been constant for a number of years now. G.A. Downey has not raised their prices, I don't think, since I've been on the commission. So they've been a good partner to work with. I'm sorry, the outside services is for the land trust for recording the shoot, what do you call them?
Was it
The conservation easement
Conservation.
monitoring.
Conservation easement. And then the sanitary facilities is obviously the porta potties. Repairs to property and equipment is relatively constant. That's to do things on the gate, around the watershed property. We do winterize the boat and so forth. So all of that falls into that line item. Public education's, the general account typically is reserved for the newsletter. And then the other public education you will see broken down between the labor, the supplies, the event, and so forth. That's the educational outreach initiative that the commission took on probably, I'm going to probably date myself here, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Am I close there, Erica? That's
Was even before me, so probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Insurance, the Watershed has bonding and coverage as well as liability coverage. So that falls in that line item. You will see that remains relatively flat. We are able to secure insurance for 3-year periods. And by securing it that way, they freeze the premium amount for those 3 years. So it's been rather advantageous to do it that way. Legal fluctuates depending on the issues at hand. So you will see this year has been a relatively quiet year. So we have reduced the budget down accordingly. Audit and financial services, that stays about the same. Each year we contract with Runyon Kirstein Olet to perform the audit as well as the treasury services. property taxes, we have Life Estates for the town of Turner, Minot, in the city of Auburn. We pay a portion of a property there. So that reflects the Watershed's cost of those three life estates and property taxes in those municipalities. Operating supplies tends to be the supplies we use for boats. So life jackets, buoys, anchors, chains for the anchors, so forth falls in that category. So we've incurred more costs as a number of the supplies have gotten a little older, so we are replacing that a little bit more frequently. And then miscellaneous has declined a little bit. That includes the CMP build for the boat launch and other various unforeseen expenses, some office supplies.
The sanitizer was often stolen from some of them. So that was kind of a, you know, we get it serviced a couple of times a week and cleaned out, but if people are using it, that's at their own discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, I have one comment. On the Auburn Water District side, as I'm dual representing, we're currently working on cost apportionment with the city of Lewiston. Do we have any budget contingencies or considerations if we start budgeting water? Renton uses 64% of the water at Lake Auburn. If those discussions continue, we might be, is that something you've been thinking about?
Kevin?
I just keep cutting out. You guys all went away, so have you continued to have the meeting?
Yeah, we're doing a roll call on the budget right now.
Okay. Might go away. Try to restart. Councilor Ray,
Yes.
Councilor Landry, Commissioner Landry,
Yes.
Commissioner Bilodeau,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Sear,
Yes.
Chair Gruby,
Yes.
and Commissioner French.
Yes.
Thank you. And Erica, you want to tell us all about water quality?
Sure. First on here is an update on the Southern Link Trail. So I'm going to let Sean talk about that because he's done most of the work on it.
Great, thanks, Erica. So I've been in the process of sort of engaging community interest in the Southern Link Trail plan. It was brought forth, I think, back in 2007. And there's been some interest in revitalizing the plan, and so I just started reaching out to some of the property owners in where the trail would cross through, and so that includes CMCC, St. Dom's Academy, and St. Mary's Healthcare Facility. So far, we've got approval from CMCC, which is great. It's kind of been a cluster getting everybody's approval, or just getting in touch with people about this, because everybody who was on the original plan in 2007 is no longer with the organizations that are listed on the plan. So I've been reaching out. I've sent some information to St. Dom's Academy and to St. Mary's Healthcare to senior leadership. So I should be hearing whether or not they approve of the trail. Marina, whole thing gets approved, it would connect Summer Street, the Summer Street extension, which would then allow trail users to connect to the Whitman Spring Road Trail. So, you know, assuming all goes well, a couple of other things. I've been working with Joan Walton at AVCog, just getting some planning advice on her end. This is a, you know, large scale sort of halfway rec, halfway transportation sort of trail. So having her feedback has been pretty crucial. I've also just reached out to Eric Cousins with community and development at the city of Auburn, setting up a call with him soon. He would like to be involved in this project. So, so yeah, as for the next step, I'm sort of in the process of gauging community interest on the very southern edge of where the proposed trail would go. There. And yeah, I actually have a map for you guys that I've been trying to get a hold of. I'm gonna paste, you can check out the map in that link that I just sent you all. And yeah, so if you guys get any questions from anyone or any concerns, just send them my way. I would love to talk to people about this. So this has kind of been a combination of both a passion project as a cyclist for me, but also you know, a great opportunity for folks in the area to, you know, get on bikes and get walking and, you know, kind of utilize the resource that we have in Lake Auburn. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's it as far as the trail plan.
Yeah, one other thing, I meant to have a line in here just about, in general, education and outreach update. Sean, do you want to just take a couple minutes and talk about the events that you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a few community events since our last meeting. And so on September 19th, we had a trail day at Salmon Point. We worked with the Androscoggin Land Trust doing some clearing of the trail, cutting back some of the overgrowth and putting some signage up at the trailheads. And then we did some general stewardship things, trash pickup, that sort of thing. On October 8th, we did a plant and wildlife ID walk. Ben just kind of taught us a little bit of what you can find in the watershed, which was cleanup day. And we've got another trail cleanup day coming up on Saturday at a parcel called Parcel, you know, it's titled Parcel 4. I'm not quite sure where the name came from, but that's through our project partners at the Androscoggin Land Trust, Joshua and Nadine. He and I kind of walked that trail after we did the trail cleanup day at Salmon Point, and we thought that Parcel 4 could use some TLC, so we're going to go over there and clean up the trailhead a little bit as well. The trail's already established there. We just want to kind of open it up, clear it out a little bit, and make sure that you know, people have a nice clear trail that's already established to sort of to check out the lake. So that's what's been going on with our community events. And otherwise, I actually Joshua of the ALT and I went out and flagged a potential new trail at Salmon Point that'll connect this trail that's already there and make a loop up and around the abutting property, so it'll stay on our side of the property but sort of hug the ridge line up at Salmon Point. We haven't flagged out if anybody wants to go check it out. There's no trail there yet, so you know, aware would be pretty crucial. And lastly, we have a student art contest going on right now through a couple days before Thanksgiving, I think, is when the student art contest ends. It's just having students in the Watershed area send us their own art about how their lives would be impacted without water, as a part of the Imagine a Day Without Water campaign from the U.S. Water Alliance. So yeah, that's our updates on community and education.
Nice, thank you. Next on here, I had the timber harvesting SOP that was included in this agenda packet. So I had incorporated some suggestions from the last meeting about adding in a steep slope clause. So as it's presented here, I would look to the commissioners to have that adopted.
Joe, just point of order. The Southern Link Trail, was there an opportunity for discussion there?
I'm sorry. I was going to bring it up at the spot. If we could probably do it now.
I just wanted to add, I was talking, and to tie in the city with this endeavor. She's interested as well as I am, and I did send out a note to Evan and Camille about starting a subcommittee for the Southern Link Trail, so some of the commissioners can be involved as well.
Can I jump in, Dan?
Sure.
Cool. So actually, there was some interest from St. Mary's Healthcare. They had expressed interest in wanting to link plan there, and I can also send a digital copy to that of that for anyone who's interested. But in that original plan, it mentions there was some sort of committee. It's been kind of hard trying to trace who was, considering that no one's on that committee anymore. Just trying to sort of track where those other organizations left off with the Southern Link Trail, and so it's basically just kind of starting fresh. So I can sort of send out that email to St. Mary's and St. Dom's and see if they would be interested in joining a committee if there is one that's formed. That would be great, just to kind of compile.
I do know the the commission interlocal agreement allows for committees as the board shall deem expedient to the efficient conduct of its affairs. I do know the 2010 Watershed Management Update Plan promotes recreation and these types of things. And since it's mostly LawPEC land, I would like to motion to authorize Sean to form a committee. And then at the next meeting, we can discuss who can contribute to that committee.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a clarifying question?
Certainly, you may.
Thanks. So Dan, you mentioned reaching out to Evan and Camille. Is the intent to keep it limited to Auburn folks, or is there an open, how, I guess in the bylaw or the interlocal agreement, is there a way of determining who joins subcommittees?
Well, I guess I'd have to address that to the staff. I mean, from my perspective, it would be whoever expressed interest.
Okay, I didn't know if there was a process in place or something. I'm a procedural gal, so that's helpful. Thanks.
Sid or Kevin, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I guess I don't know of anything to answer that specific question, Alicia. I don't think there is a formal process for assigning committee members. It's usually been, as Joe mentioned, whoever expresses interest in it. So I guess that could be a discussion in itself to see who, maybe this group should discuss it openly as a committee, as a full board as to who might be interested rather than just soliciting a few to see if they just that.
So my motion was to form a committee organized by Sean, and then at the next meeting to actually refine the details of that committee. I mean, we only meet 5 times a year, so I mean, when is the next meeting? A lot of thought can go in, you know, to how it would work out to benefit the community. This is a huge endeavor. This is connecting 2 major education institutions. Someday, the DOT has said we can get the engineering is actually designed for pedestrian overpass. So that would link the East Auburn Village, that would link Lakeshore Drive through parcel 4 to the boat launch area. This will link the community college, St. Mary's, St. John's, and then eventually there's a couple different options, Lost Valley and the Whitman Spring Road. So this would be great to get recreationals in this type of endeavor.
Can I jump in real quick?
Please.
So yeah, I get the feeling that Dan sort of asked me about that because of my work on the planning board. I guess I think it's a good idea. I see where you're coming from, Dan, with creating the motion, but I think that I think it would be easier for us to move forward if we authorize or ask Sean to develop the framework for such a committee and identify the kind of characteristics that might be helpful to have for members on the committee, possible number of committee members, and a specific charge and purpose. I say that because otherwise we're sort of like putting the cart before the horse. I think it would be nice to have a framework of like, hey, this is what this committee is going to look like. These are the needs that staff's identified that the committee could help with. Obviously, the committee will look to staff and say, okay, here's what we need from staff as well. But I think developing that framework would be first, rather than asking Sean to create a committee and then come to us. If he's got the framework, and once the framework's done, it's easy to talk about things and amend things, right? So if he's got the framework and it comes in front of us next meeting, the committee can be formed, you know, subsequent to the vote, right? So it's not like it slows down the creation of that committee, but I think it would create more clarity. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, if that's a friendly amendment to have Sean create the framework for a committee to come back to us at the next meeting, that could be my original motion as well.
Thank you. Is there go ahead.
That is a good question. I'm glad you said that, Evan, is the purpose or the mission of this committee, to have that very well defined is important. And also, friendly reminder, Sean is only part-time. So this is not like a 40-hour week. It's going to take some time.
Probably the exact reason why the committee should be formed, so he could have help.
And just jump in real quick before we move to the next item. Yeah, I would definitely be interested in that. The one thing, as Evan was saying, is that, you know, I just don't want to, you know, jump ahead too far yet. This is still contingent on people's approval, and so far we only have CMCC's firm yes to move forward with the plan. And if that were the case, on that map that I sent everybody, it'll show where the original trail was planning on ending, and that's without anybody else's approval but CMCC's. So then, you know, it's kind of, the more people we get involved, the more potentially we have a pool to pull committee members from. You know, if it's just us in CMCC, you know, I'm more than happy to form that committee and figure out where it goes from there. But we, you know, also like you were saying, Dan, this is a big project, and if we can get landowner approval from, you know, the Smiths down on, you know, the southern end of the lake, that's just another potential party that we can pull from to sort of make this committee a full and flourishing thing. And that just, I want to make sure that kind of everything else is in line and ready to roll 100% before, you know, that committee gets formed.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but from the boat launch area, it is all LawPac land to the pump access road.
Yep.
And this easement that we're granting Central Maine Community College, they have bought that, and they've given us kind of the green light for the Southern Link Trail. So would it be prudent for us to work on design and these types of things, and actually maybe getting a winter trail in sooner than later on the portions that we already own, to kind of build the momentum for the other 2 miles that are not firmed up yet?
Yeah, I was actually hoping to flag, at the very least, flag that portion before this year's over, and I'll keep everybody in touch with that. Yeah, that was definitely on the agenda, to at least get to the point where we can flag out what's on our land and kind of get an idea of the landscape. You know, I have it mapped out, but you know, there's always little issues with topography and things like that that you can't really get to unless you physically go out and walk it. So yeah, I was planning on doing that before the end of the year for sure.
So is there enough direction for Sean, or do we need a motion, Joe?
I'm not sure we need a motion, but I think the idea of the framework and the additional information that Evan supplied, I think probably gives him enough of a framework to work with. Do you feel you have enough, Sean?
Yeah, for sure. We've got a lot to work with. Yeah.
And you would be reporting back at the next meeting.
Yep.
How we're going to go forward.
That's December 2nd, right? Yeah. Okay.
No, that would only be necessary for budget approval. So no, our next meeting is going to be February next year.
Yep.
Excuse me.
And Joe, can I just jump in with, I understand Dan reaching out to Evan and Camille about the initial thinkings of this. I'd love if there was some Lewiston representation. However, I'm drowning in work currently, so I will not be it. But if we could just have someone from our side of the river participating, I think that would be helpful for advertising the recreational opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea for all of the commission to consider how we could do this, particularly for Lewiston. I mean, I would probably be interested in seeing where it would go, so I could probably be involved. So if we're all set with that, could we move on to the next item?
I apologize, Joe. I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
And I also apologize. I'm in the basement right now. My kids are upstairs, so the furnace is sort of whining in the background. I was hoping I'd catch it in between, but so Sean, you talked about reaching out to landowners. You talked about specifically St. Mary's, Central Maine Community College, and St. Dom's.
Yep.
But of course, on the map you sent us, there are a lot of other private landowners.
Yep.
That would need to be included. So I was just asking, have you started reaching out to them at all?
Yep, I just started with the first, the sort of first parcel, which comes out right where the Berry farmland is. They're sort of our first gateway for the rest of the trail. I haven't heard back from them just yet. So it's kind of just gonna go down the line and just keep calling, seeing who answers, if anybody answers, and you know, just kind of keep going through that route. I spoke with, I think I mentioned Eric Cousins earlier, and hopefully he's got some cold calling advice. You know, cold calls only go so far. If nobody picks up, that's it. So yeah, the next route aside from cold calling, has been I've thought about doing some posters, some sort of public outreach materials, but it's kind of hard to do that in a way without revealing people's personal,
Right.
right. So it's kind of one of those things where, I think getting the planning department involved would be super helpful and beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you've got a lot on your plate. I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel. I would really appreciate it if while you're reaching out to these private landowners, if you could sort of keep a log of maybe what some of their concerns might be. I'd hate to see the project sort of get deep sixed because there was a concern, especially if it's something that we could develop a solution for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be important for, obviously if we have a subcommittee, for that subcommittee to be aware of those things and working on those solutions, but also the commission as a whole, which leads me to my next question, which is not about the Southern Link Trail. So the Parcel 4 event, I got to tell you, I was completely blindsided by that one. I got people from the public and even someone from the council in Auburn reach out to me and ask me what was going on and what that was going to be. And I had to tell them I have no idea, which honestly didn't sit well with me that it said, the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission. So they reached out knowing that I'm newly appointed, and I had to tell them I had no idea what was going on. So my question there is sort of, what's the communication between staff and the commissioners with regard to what's going on at the staff level? Like how?
I'm not so sure. I sort of saw that parcel as an opportunity, knowing that that was an LEWPC owned parcel of land, and just having gone out and done some site walking on it, that that's a parcel of land that could have been revitalized. I didn't think much aside from reaching out with our previous connections with the ALT and things like that, and then our normal sort of trail, like our normal group of volunteers for trail maintenance and things like that. But yeah, as far as I know, that's been an LEWPC parcel that's been owned for quite some time, and so I'm not sure.
What would you like to see, Evan, for communication?
Well, so to be honest, I think it's good, as particularly looking at the jug handle that's going to be going in with Route 4. It's kind of nice to see something on the other side that can be accessed by the public, get redeveloped. I guess, and maybe it's because so the municipal boards that I've been on, I guess, have been a little structured a little different than this. And so I'm very used to knowing what is going to be happening before it sort of gets announced. So something even as simple as like, including the commissioners on, like whatever mailing or email went out. I had a counselor share. I don't know if she got an email invite or something, and she was like, "Oh, hey, what can you tell me about this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I didn't even get the invite." Right? So
that's odd. You're on the mailing list.
Okay.
Yeah, all our commissioners, and we have several different groups. So, do you want notifications sent out to commissioners before we send it out to our email blast?
Yeah, I would love that. And actually, Erica, if I was supposed to be on an email, maybe I need to connect with, who would I connect with? You or maybe Sid? I don't know who's going to hit. There might be an issue there with the email.
So the one that we had, I have one for you, which is one that I had shared with Sean. You shoot me a message separately if there's a different one you want us to use, for sure. But just going forward, is that something that you think would be beneficial if we send a message just to commissioners first before we send out our email blast to everybody?
Yeah, I think at least a heads up. Honestly, it was I could say personally irksome, but it was more of the sort of thing where I would have liked to have known ahead of time. So if I had questions I could ask, sort of talk up something like that rather than have to reply that, sorry, I got no idea what's going on. I guess it just doesn't reflect well on the
Evan,
the
how
work.
about like a monthly watershed email, just to like they do the activity report at the commission meetings 4 times a year, but we could do a monthly commissioner update from staff.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think it, we're members of the community and people ask us questions, and I think it'd be nice for us to be able to speak positively about what's going on rather than answer, I'm not sure. You'll have to call someone else.
I
So
would
a
hop
month-
in and say that would be incredibly helpful to have more of a heads up on these sorts of events going forward. I think the infrequency of our meetings lends to some of what you're talking about, Evan, with the not always knowing what's going on when. So I would absolutely echo that.
So a monthly, is email update fine to commissioners?
Yeah, look, make it. I'm not trying to add additional work for the staff. I just think that I think it's beneficial for the commissioners, but also the work that LawPEC is doing. If commissioners are apprised of it, and can speak about it in the community when asked, I think it's good for us.
Okay.
I'd be in favor of that too. I think anything that would show what the initiatives that are coming out of the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission staff that the public would be interested in, it would help us. Or Evan, in the event that someone does approach him, he'd be able to explain what was going on. At least he'd have foreknowledge of it.
Okay, we can set that up.
So you have enough direction.
Yes. Yep.
Now, can we go back to the items, or is there anything else? If we could go back to the timber harvesting SOPs.
Yep. So I had included that in the agenda packet. I had added in more information about having a steep slope clause in there. And as it's drafted now, I was looking for approval of this document from the commissioners.
Is there a motion to accept it now or to put it on to the next agenda? If people need to look into it further.
I'm in favor of putting it on to the next agenda. I'm also in favor of meeting in December or January if we need to do something special to ensure that the best time to log, which is typically when the ground is frozen or when it's been dry like this, if it is more advantageous, I wouldn't mind a special meeting to do that and a few other agenda items.
Are you making that as a motion, Dan?
Sorry, it's yeah. It was just my thoughts, but I'll motion to put this for vote at the next available meeting, which could be a special meeting. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I'll second
So
that
you
motion.
So you don't mind if it's December or January as long as it's before the February meeting? Because January is middle of winter, I would imagine that would take care of it.
Yeah, the sooner the better. I was just the same. I just didn't get the document in time to really get through it all. I didn't want to table it. I don't know if Robert's rules, if there's another way of doing this, but I'm in favor of moving it to the next meeting.
Is there a second on that motion?
Yes.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. So hard without being able to see your face, Joe. I appreciate, it did get to us a couple days earlier than other documents have before, but I do think I need some more time with the document, which is why I'm supporting this motion to move it forward to a next meeting. I also think, again, to Commissioner Sears' point just previous, and now what Commissioner Bilodeau is saying, increased frequency of these meetings might be something we need to speak about at some point. There's a lot going on, and I think there's active investment in the watershed now, and so I'm just starting with that.
Okay.
For documents such as this, typically, so it was included with the agenda, right? Would you like to see documents like this sent out maybe 2 weeks ahead of the agenda? Is there something we can stick to that would be helpful for commissioners?
Well, I'd be in favor of getting it 2 weeks ahead of time. I mean, I did read through it, but to be honest, I was reading through it this morning, so I'd be fine with 2 weeks. I don't know about the other commissioners. Is there any thoughts?
If the document's available sooner, then they can be sent out as an update. Otherwise, yeah, a couple weeks before the agenda would be great if it's a long document, like the land use management plan as well.
Okay, so a couple of weeks before the agenda, so that would be 3 weeks before the meeting.
That would work for me. I don't know about the other commissioners. I mean, I would have to echo Dan's point on the land management plan. I don't think we'd be voting on it today anyways, but I also think that we would hold off on that.
Joe,
Yes.
I think I would just appreciate when they're available, because if they come too close to the meeting, we can always table it to the next one.
I agree, Steve.
Okay. So when available?
So you want to just table that and let the commission review the plans as proposed at this point? And you're looking for input into it also, though, aren't you?
So yeah, so I had got a couple of comments on the timber harvesting SOP, and I incorporated those. So that's why I had that on the agenda today for approval. But certainly if we want to move it to the next meeting, if commissioners could send me comments probably 2 weeks before our next meeting, that would be helpful. I mean, if we do it in December, that doesn't give you very long, but if we do it in January, that gives you some time. I had the land management plan on here, not for adoption today, just as an update. This is a draft. I did receive comments from Camille, and I had that on this agenda as another point to request comments from other commissioners before our next meeting. And if you could get those to me also 2 weeks before that meeting, that would be helpful.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Okay, why don't we move on to watershed projects?
Point of order, Joe, you have a motion and a second.
I'm sorry.
You want to do a vote?
Yeah, let's do a vote. You want to read the motion?
So the motion was by Dan to put this SOP up for vote at the next available commission meeting, and Alicia seconded it.
Thank you. You want to do a roll call then?
Sure. I don't see Kevin on, so I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Landry,
Yes.
Commissioner Bilodeau,
Yes.
Commissioner Sear,
Yes.
Commissioner French,
Yes.
and Commissioner Joe.
Yeah, the Commissioner Joe says yes.
All right, sorry. That's passed 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, Eric, if you could talk about watershed projects.
Sure. So at the last meeting, we requested some funds to be transferred into our source protection fund from other line items in the budget, and that was to do some work on the Whitman Spring Road. So the Lewiston crew has been out there cleaning up some of the drainage features. There's a plunge pool there that had a couple trees coming out of it that needed to be, maintained. They're going to be working on regrading parts of the road to help minimize runoff. There are some certain sections of that road that, with some of the heavy rains that we've had recently, you can see some of that sediment traveling down. So they're going to be working. Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw Kevin's message. He's still here. Okay. So they're working on making improvements to that. We missed the window for ditching and seeding to catch some grass on the inner side of that road, but I'm hoping that we can do that next spring because that will help kind of manage the flow that comes down that road as well. And we had a contract with Ty and Bond for the Blanchard Pond study. That is in the final stages. We're just looking to get one more piece of information back about phosphorus in the sediment of that pond. And they've sent out some recommendations for remediating that pond and stream system, which we know carries quite a bit of phosphorus into the lake. And as Heather mentioned, we have some money budgeted for that next year, depending on what their final recommendations are to fix that system, because we know it's contributing phosphorus and sediment. And for water quality update, the lake turned over this Monday, the 2nd, in the afternoon. So water quality staff went out and did a final round of lake sampling today. The lake is completely mixed, and staff will be looking to swap over to ice buoys soon. And really the next thing is just keeping an eye on when ice is on. So right now our turbidity is up a bit because of the lake mixing. It's running about a 0.9 NTU. Still fine, just, higher than what we have seen during other times of the year. Any questions on either watershed projects or water quality?
I'd like to say that I enjoyed that meeting with a forester a few weeks ago.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm sorry I could not attend. I was quarantining for possible COVID exposure. Luckily, nothing came of that, but I'm glad that went well.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Yeah,
it was interesting to hear that he has a different opinion on the reason you cut wood rather than just making money.
Yep, absolutely. And if there's other topics that, would be helpful to do workshops like that, please feel free to let me know. I'm happy to set those up and to work with you guys on those. I think it's great.
Not to give you more work, but do you think a press release on lake turnover would be of interest to people who read the Sun Journal?
Yes, actually, Andrew Rice, one of the journalists, he usually reaches out to us for ice on, ice out, all that information. So we can certainly let them know. I'm happy to send him a message.
Great. And how about water quality? Or is that it?
That was it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. How about Route 4 reconstruction?
Yeah, I'll take that one. That is, this has been on the agenda for the last several meetings. The last time we met, we had agreed to reach out to the DOT project administrator. As you remember, they were requesting a donation of the boat launch area to configure their project. I did reach out to them asking that we would like to see something in writing regarding that arrangement. I did hear back from the project manager, Roby Moulton. She did, it's been a little awkward, a lot of the conversation and meetings because of the COVID situation we have, a lot of the people aren't working in their office, so it's a little clunky, but they did say in an email back to me that they would pay for the cost of relocating the boat launch gates, and they are open to discussion for some additional parking within the boat launch area to accommodate the loss of the turnout area. They did mention that they want to be mindful of anything that would trigger anything regarding the MS4 regulation, the stormwater separation requirements for Auburn. One thing about this project, since the last time we met, they have posted a virtual public hearing on this project, and there is a link I can send you, but it is on the maine.gov MDOT website under VPI, which stands for Virtual Public Involvement. I can send you all a link to that, but it does outline the project. They actually did a pretty good job of putting that project together. The timing of this, a whole lot has not evolved because there is still some time to do some things with this. They're not going to be advertising this project until this time next year. And they may or may not get some things done late next fall, but the majority of this project will happen in early 2022. So that there is still quite a bit of time to get all of the pieces together prior to this project going out. So that's the kind of an update on that one. Is there any questions?
I would just like to add, I want to thank Sid. I know John Storer was assistant superintendent, and I think Norm Lamy was superintendent back in 2013. They were pushing to get the Route 4 turnout abandoned. These are the minutes in conjunction with expanding the parking at the adjacent boat launch. So if we have to spend money to extend the parking lot to meet our original goals, and now that the state is thinking about helping out with that, that's excellent because we could use funding for the trailhead location off that parking lot. And back to Erica's original comment earlier, I would love to have a field trip with the commissioners to that parking lot so they can really see before, look at the Route 4 construction plans, and then what we can envision with the committee, what we can do after in this beautiful area that basically revitalizes the original view sheds of being out on the eastern shore looking at the sunset without being near a highway of 60-mile-per-hour traffic. So I think it's huge for the community to be able to have this parking lot, this expansion, this trailhead. And as you know, I'm a trail advocate outside of my duties as a volunteer for these different boards and committees. So thanks, Sid.
Sure. Yep. So this will evolve in the coming months. I do plan to work with DOT and see what we can do to get them to cooperate to assist with that part of it.
Dan, would you be interested in doing, I guess, kind of an on-site discussion this time within the next month or two? What's the timeline for that?
The way I work is, it's 60 degrees the next 5 days. So I'd be willing as soon as possible. I do have a commitment to my workplace, and basically I'm on call to go back to training. So that's the unfortunate thing. I may be in Denver if it's too far out planned, but I can almost immediately in the next week or two meet with and kind of show everything. And I know Sean has been out there. I've actually walked the trail, the old abandoned road where all the ditching is there. It's just brush, that goes from the community boat launch area to the pump house road. So these parcels I've been a part of for years since the plan came out. So Yeah, just give me a call, Erica, or email works great, and I'll be there.
I was thinking like for all commissioners.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll see what we have available.
Okay. Moving on to the City of Auburn, Lake Auburn study. Sid, you have an update on that?
Yes, I do. And this is a continuation of a agenda item from some previous meetings. The City of Auburn has put together a work group to look into kind of the environmental, economic, regulatory, and community impacts of delivering water. There was a work group put together consisting of Auburn City Councilor Belinda Gary and Brian Carrier, and they reached out to the Water District. There were two of our water trustees, Jason Paulino and Mary Sylvester, and also included in this work group was the city manager, Phil Crowell, and myself. And we've been meeting to put this RFP together. Most recently on Monday, November 2nd, the RFP was submitted to the Auburn City Council, who did vote to adopt it and send it out. In December, they're looking to get the RFPs back, and their work group is going to look them over and interview the respondents. And sometime in January of 2021, bringing a recommendation back to the City Council for consideration to start this RFP process. So that's an update on that project. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. How about the Central Maine Community College emergency access?
Yeah, this is it's included in your packet. This, for those of you who have been around a while, you might remember this project from back in 2017. On our pump station road, the Central Maine Community College was requesting to put in an emergency access so they would be able to evacuate the community college in case of an emergency. Right now, they only have 1 point in, 1 point out that comes out to Turner Street. So this emergency access would give them, it would be a gated access, allowing them to evacuate the college on our pump station road if that was ever needed. It would benefit the college. It would also benefit our workers at the UV treatment plant, because that would give them another point of egress and exit if there was ever something that happened at the pump station road. This was again initiated in 2017. We got down to the point where we had documentation that was submitted, but it just kind of fell apart. But they brought it up again, and it's something they were hoping to push through. We've looked at this. I think I've talked to internal staff. We're satisfied with what they've provided. I think there will be some details to work out as it's physically laid out and put in. They are going to be putting an access gate on their property, which will be locked. We do want to see some additional provisions put in, but we can work that out as it gets constructed to make sure that there's not going to be utilization by the community college as a regular in and out point that's just going to be used for emergency. But I was looking to get approval from the commission to move forward and sign this document so they can get that installed. I don't know if anyone had any questions on it. This was again, this was something that was pretty well nailed down a few years ago, but it just never was finalized.
Sid, I have a question.
Sure.
Will this be behind your closed gate?
Yes, it will.
So they'll have to have access to your gate.
They will. However, it's only going to be used to exit the facility, and our closed gate automatically opens up from the inside if you drive up to it.
Oh.
So it's only going to be used for exit.
Thank you.
And Sid, there's no cost to the commission.
Nope, there will no cost to the commission for this.
Sid, is there any reason why it's been held up, or is it just never?
That's a good question. I'm not sure why it was. I went back and I looked at some of our notes and things, and I'm not sure why. It just this has always been at the the community college is the organization that's really been kind of pushing this to make it happen, and I'm not sure why, but it never was really.
They never took
followed
it to the
through.
next step, so it wasn't anything on our end that we were
No,
concerned about. Okay,
No,
thanks.
Sid,
they've got a new finance manager now, and she came in and was cleaning off the desk and said, "Hey, what's this?" And so she's pushing to push it through. So it's a good thing.
So, Sid, you mentioned that the college is interested in it as a second egress, point of egress. But then you also mentioned that it could be helpful for us because it would act the same for us, for the folks down at the UV treatment plant.
Right.
You say the gate's going to go on their side. As part of this agreement, are we working out that those folks at the plant are going to be able to have access to whatever the lock mechanism is? If it's a key, they've got a key down there.
Yes, we would. Yeah, we would need that. And it would only be used like under some emergency situation, like if like a big pine tree fell across our pump station road. We had no way to get in, and that's actually happened before. We would be able to come in through the community college, open that gate so we could get in and access the UV station.
Yeah, I'm assuming you'd have some kind of MOA on that. I just wanted to make sure that we're both sort of getting that benefit of the egress.
Yes, that would be something. Yes, that would be something we need to work out. There are a couple. There are a couple of other logistic things we want to make sure we worked out. They'd mentioned, we need to make sure that they stepped up their security of it, monitoring it, either through remote cameras or something to make sure that there's not any loitering going on or something around that area, or they need to step up their monitoring to make sure that it wouldn't become a nuisance.
We're also going to put in a clause to make sure that if this isn't working out, that we can actually put them on notice and say, hey, we've got a lot of activity going on. This isn't working for us, and we can get out of the agreement and stop or discontinue the use if needed in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys are not talking. This is not like an easement that you guys are doing. This is just like a written understanding. This is not like a binding.
Well, it is an easement because they'd be utilizing. We'd give them permission to basically utilize our property for that purpose. So it is an easement.
Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is like this is a conditional thing. This is not like a deeded right of way we're giving them.
Correct.
So they're going to be responsible for updating the paperwork so that it says 2020
Yes.
and all that good stuff.
Right. I didn't know if there was just anything in concept that someone had any issues with, but if not, I was looking for approval to just do those rote upgrades and then have it executed.
Well, the only thing I looked at was to make sure that there was no problem with erosion into the lake, and that was addressed in one of the under number 2. Well, could I have a motion to accept this?
So moved.
There a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Do you want a roll call, or we're just
Roll
gonna?
call.
Yeah, roll call, definitely.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Landry,
Yes.
Commissioner Bilodeau,
yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Chair Groby,
Yes.
and Commissioner French.
Yes.
Did we have somebody join us or still 6?
Bill 6-0.
Okay. All right, thank you. Open session, public comments? Do we have any public?
We do not.
Okay. Open session for commissioners.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So as I kind of prefaced a little bit earlier, I think taking a look at our schedule to try to make sure that we have meetings at the consistency that we need to and the frequency that we need to. It sounds like there's a lot more work kicking up, at least in the past couple months, and maybe I'm just misattributing some other work, but I'd be curious to hear if other commissioners feel a need to have more regular check-ins that we can cancel if there's not enough material for staff to bring forward, or if we should just ad hoc add things on.
Well, I think that's a good point. I appreciate that, and I think the direction that seems to be provided at this meeting is that seems to be what we will be looking at going forward. Other commissioners can chime in under the open session for commissioners, and I know you have a hard stop for 5 o'clock, right?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I think
Well, have a good time at the County Budget Committee.
I think to follow up with Commissioner Ray's concern, typically put out a calendar for meetings for the next year, and we'll get that out to you guys to look at any conflicts, vacations, or anything like that. So we can add in additional dates like you requested.
I think we should definitely look at a date in January.
Yep, we'll get that out there along with a proposed full schedule for 2021.
So we're now at open session for commissioners. Is there anyone else who has anything to say?
Dan, you're muted.
Sorry about that. A question for staff, and maybe a future agenda item. For decades, this is how I got involved in the watershed. If they're ever wondering, like, well, what happened? How does Bilodeau guy get all involved in this watershed stuff? Is it possible for the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission to use the Lewiston clerk to negotiate and purchase parcels and lands that just so happens, because Sid wears 2 hats, he's the regulator, and former superintendents, John and Norm Lamy, were regulating lands, and at the same time, they were negotiating the same parcels of lands to purchase on behalf of the Watershed Protection Commission. And that's the question, is can the commission look at this, talk about it among staff? Maybe Kevin or whoever the co-clerk is on the Lewiston side could be doing the negotiations, the initial work, bringing it to the commission, executive session, et cetera, sign the purchase sale agreements, and then close on the properties. So it's not a conflict for the Auburn side, which is the side that's actually regulating the land, because most of it's in Auburn. And that's what I wanted to bring up in open session.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Joe. So
Yes.
as I mentioned before, and I think I mentioned this in my first meeting. So I've been on the Auburn Planning Board for almost a decade at this point. So meetings and governance isn't necessarily new. What struck me about the about LawPAC though was I did have some documents, for instance, access to bylaws, the founding documents for the organization, but there's like not a lot of documentation available. So for instance, the clerks aren't mentioned in what I guess you would call the charter. Okay, the interlocal agreement. I'll refer to it as the charter at this point. they don't exist in the charter, but my assumption is that that position was created at some point. As a new commissioner, it's hard to follow sort of how those things happen. Or for instance, the allocation of certain adjudicatory authorities to different staff members. Of course, nothing being wrong with any of that. I think as a new commissioner, it's incredibly confusing for me. And as a planning board member, I'm used to actually being able to go to state law and state statute, local ordinance, and get really clear answers as to why certain structures and entities are set up the way they're set up. I'm having a difficult time doing that with the commission. And I'm wondering, maybe those commissioners that have been on the board, have been on the commission longer, have these kinds of answers, and it becomes common knowledge over time. But throwing out the idea that I would be interested in working with a couple other commissioners and some staff to put together sort of a library of that documentation, so that way new commissioners, old commissioners can look and say, okay, why do we do things this way? Here's the documentation that explains why this situation came about and why this structure works the way it does, if it's not described in interlocal agreement or in the bylaws. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you.
If I could speak, I know it's an open session for commissioners. You know, it's interesting you bring that up. One thing that we had as the water district we did last year is we had a comprehensive review of our charter, our bylaws, the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, the authority that they have and how they interact. And it was a very effective thing we did. We had to actually Jim Pross review all of those documents, and he came in and he spoke with the water trustees and he addressed issues exactly what you're talking about. You know, how do these rules overlap? Who has jurisdiction over things that are done and how they're done? And it was very helpful to have him come in and do that for us. I don't know if that's something we might want to have him do with the commissioners as well at a future meeting. It really helped our water trustees to understand how the different organizations function together and where the overlap is. I think that might be effective for the commissioners too, if that's something they're interested in a future meeting.
Yeah,
Well, the more knowledge. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I apologize, Joe, for jumping in. I was saying, yes, I would be very interested in something like that.
And I was going to echo that. So,
yeah, I could reach out to him if that's something that is of interest.
I would agree. I think it would be helpful. So we really get the clearer picture. I think that'd help a lot.
Sid, I've probably been on this the longest since I've been on it since inception. So if you need any documentation and stuff, I can pull what I have as well.
Okay.
all that. She's not even 40 yet. It's amazing. Well, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. And I would like to say that I appreciate all the involvement of everybody on Zoom. And I apologize for probably not appearing on your screen because I've had the little circle of death on my computer saying waiting for me to join. So I don't know how I joined, but I am still stuck over here. So is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I would make that motion.
I can second that.
All right. All moved and seconded. All in favor? Roll call?
You want a roll call? We can do that.
Well, nobody said anything.
Oh, wow. Oh, right.
Commissioner Ray is left, so Commissioner Landry.
Yes.
Commissioner Parrish has joined us.
Yeah, and sorry I couldn't be at most of the meeting, but yes, I vote to adjourn.
Glad you could join us. Commissioner Bilodeau,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner French,
Yes.
and Commissioner Chair Groby.
Yes.
Pass 6-0. Have a great night, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, early.
Yeah.